Couches. It's good to see so many friends out there. It's also hard not to smile when I hear about the 8-year term. Correct. It is not a common thing in elected office to have a term of 8 years. And I'm thankfully 1 year and 2 months into that 8 years. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've been getting done in that time period. It was very, very important to me that we show a year of results. And that's why we got to work after my election in 2023 to be the clerk of the court. My predecessor very graciously offered me the opportunity to come in the following Monday and get to work on the transition. That's not something I've talked a lot about, so I just wanted to briefly mention to you guys, my predecessor, Mr. Fry, extended that and said, let's get to work, Chris. Meet me Monday morning, 9 a.m., and let's start handing this over. My opponent as well called me and said, Chris, I'm still here. I'm the deputy here. Let me know how I can be helpful. We want to see you succeed. So I have to give credit where credit is due there. But I really rolled up my sleeves and said, when we get in, I want to hit the ground running. And but before I get to that, I just want to make sure everyone is aware. I'm sure you guys have heard me many times, but some haven't. The clerk of the court is one of the 3 constitutional elected offices in Fairfax County. So it's the clerk of the court, it's your sheriff, and it's the Commonwealth's attorney. So those 3 positions are called the constitutional offices here. And it's called that because they're found in the Virginia Constitution. And the other 2 are Stacey Kincaid, our sheriff, and Steve Descano, our Commonwealth attorney, also known as our district attorney in other parts of the country. But a little bit about the office. I won't take too much time because I think you guys know this, but my main duties are operating the county circuit court. So handling the day-to-day operations at the Fairfax Circuit Court, staffing the office, making sure that everyone that comes in and wants marriage licenses can have their marriage licenses issued same day. So they walk in, they walk out with marriage licenses in hand. That's part of my duty. Also recording all the deeds. So anytime property sales occur in Fairfax County or Fairfax City, all of those documents come and get recorded at our office. We have e-recording, which is utilized for most of the sales that are happening, home sales, commercial sales, but we're also available for people that don't do e-filing and bring in paper documents. So between the marriage licenses, the recording of land records, those keep us very busy. But we're also the office that by law is also in charge of registration of wills. So when people pass away, their wills get brought to the courthouse by the person that's been assigned with that duty, their executor. We also handle the estates for people who die without wills. So people who die, it's called the term intestate. So those are the 3 big ones that I like to always talk about. In some parts of the country, you actually have different elected officials that do all 3 of those duties. You'll have a clerk of court, you'll have a register of wills, and then you'll also have a recorder of deeds. So all of those are in some places 3 separate jobs, but you get one person doing them here. But don't let me misspeak. I get nothing done with just myself. It's a team of 175 that we've got at the Fairfax Circuit Court that are working for you daily so that you know you have an operational court system there, handling all the civil cases, the criminal cases on top of that. We have 800 other statutory duties. I won't get into them, but one of them this morning was that I was at George Mason University at 8 a.m. today to swear in the new members of the Board of Visitors. So part of my role is also officiating the oaths of office for new government officials or government officials that are being reappointed to another term. So those are some of the big ones. But the big changes that we brought to this office are things that I ran on. So one of the first ones is that I wanted to make the services of the courthouse more accessible to all people, and not just people who have the means to go in the middle of a workday to the courthouse, drive in their own car, take paid time off, maybe have their kids already be in childcare, but for all the people that I had met on the campaign who don't have paid time off of their work, who don't own their own transportation, who don't just have time to pick up and go in the middle of a workday to the court because they need a single piece of paper from us. So I came in and I told the staff, I want us to start working to find a way to launch satellite service so that we have different places within the county where we can have a pop-up where people can come and pick up copies of court records, come and pick up marriage licenses, apply on the spot and get marriage licenses. So we worked with the county. I have to give credit also to Chairman McKay, to the staff from Fairfax County who helped us be able to launch satellite service in Reston starting in May of 2024 last year. So we did that in 4 months. We got it planned, we worked it out, we found a location. So on the second Tuesday of every month, we hold a monthly satellite pop-up courthouse, essentially, where you can come and file court documents, get copies of court documents, apply for marriage licenses, and get free notary service. We're looking into expanding that program in the future, but for right now, we hold that in Reston at the Kathy Hudgens Community Center on the second Tuesday of every month. So I'll put the link in the chat in just a minute about that program. But that was a very important initiative to me also. That part of Reston, my mom worked at the Dogwood Elementary School that's like 2 blocks away from where we deliver this service. So I had gotten to know this part of Fairfax County a little bit growing up, and I knew there was a need there for service. We also provide service in Spanish, which is one of the most highly spoken languages in that part of the county. The other big thing, one of the other big things I ran on, and I would say my biggest initiative during my campaign, which lasted from June of 2022 through November 2023, I ran a 1.5-year long campaign for this countywide office, was to finally have Fairfax County provide free online access to case information. You all remember that. I hammered my opponent constantly saying, Fairfax County is the only county in Virginia that doesn't provide free access to case information. It doesn't provide you, you can't go on your phone right now. I would pick up my phone when I was giving the speech and say, you can't go on your phone and find out what's happening in your case, or find out what's happening in that, in that case that happened in your community. You should have the right as a citizen, as a resident here, to have access to the same information that Prince William County has. And ours, plug in a case and find out when is the hearing going to be, what's being filed, what's happening. My opponent was a deputy in the current administration. So I said, you all have had an opportunity to provide the public with this access and you haven't done it. It's time to finally bring this information out. So what was happening, guys, is the information was available if you paid $150 for a 3-month plan. And then, and only then, could you get online access to case information. That was the only county that was doing that. Everywhere else, you could go for free on a website and just pull up the case data. And so I was attacked with, you're going to release all these people's private information. Chris is a nice guy, but don't vote for him. He's going to get your information leaked. That was nonsense. What I was always talking about were case numbers, case names, and just the pleading information. When was the last motion filed? When's the next hearing date happening? So I always came back with, I'm not talking about people's private information. You're conflating the issue. You're misstating my position. So it was important that we call out misinformation. It was important then. It's more important now. We can get into that in a minute. But that was my key issue. And so I worked with the team on day one when I got in. We had a conversation with the Supreme Court. We didn't end up going that direction by joining the Virginia Supreme Court, but instead what we did, guys, is something better. We created a program in Fairfax County at no additional cost to the taxpayers, wholly in-house with Fairfax County staff. We developed a program called eCase Search that is currently found on the Fairfax Circuit Court website. So you can go there right now and land on our main page and you'll see a link for eCase Search. And that program allows you to look up Fairfax Circuit Court cases. We finally have free access available in this county. I don't have to go out there and lose my voice anymore saying we're the only county that doesn't let people find public information for free online. And I can now, go on to another issue. But just a little bit about how that program was developed. I worked with our in-house IT team. We were in partnership with the Fairfax County Department of Information Technology, who assisted us with programmers. And we developed this program in 6 months. So we launched it July 1st of last year. and it has been utilized tens of thousands of times. In the first 2 months of service, first 2 months in July and August, there it is. Thank you for sharing it, guys. It had over 52,000 searches. So we know people were looking for their case information. And one example of where I had heard it was really needed was attorneys who represent people as court-appointed lawyers. So that is a situation where you usually have someone that's been charged, right, criminally charged, and they aren't able to afford high-powered lawyers, so they have court-appointed attorneys who are excellent lawyers representing them. The court-appointed lawyers were telling me, we can't find that case information because we don't pay that small fortune for that program that Fairfax has. We need something like this. So I've heard from them that they've used our program, and I'm glad that we're now providing that access. It's important for you all to also realize one of the reasons I really knew this was a need is I had volunteered with legal aid on weekends, and on weekends you can't call the court and ask them about a case. So you're completely blocked off of information on nights and weekends when the courthouse isn't open, when you can't go there physically to look at the files. So it was such an equity gap. It was such a barrier to justice. And I'm just couldn't be prouder to say we knocked down that barrier July 1st of last year. And we're providing better service to our customers. Last point I'll say about that is when we were developing it, one of our programmers, whose native language is Arabic, said to me, Mr. Falcon, this is a great idea. Can we offer it in the other most frequently spoken at home languages other than English? And so I got to give credit to Irene. She had the light bulb moment. And so the program is translatable into this other 6 most frequently spoken at home languages other than English. So you can access it in Spanish, in Korean, in Vietnamese, in Arabic, in Mandarin, in Amharic. And that is, I think, what is beautiful. And it was developed and then it was translated by our staff, our immigrant staff, new Americans who worked for the Fairfax Circuit Court, said, we want to help with that. So they lent their language skills. We're talking about people who are programmers, who are court employees, who do other things at our courthouse, leaned in this moment and said, we want to help make this even better so it helps more people. That's a story that I've told the county. We need to be telling that story all the time because it shows why immigrants get the job done, right? So you guys can tell I'm excited about this. And the other big thing that we did last year is we went digital. So we used to create paper files at the circuit court. We no longer make paper files. It's not that I don't like paper. Paper's fine, but it's not environmentally friendly. We would constantly have to be looking around for files. So now for our criminal cases, people can access those files digitally. So if a judge needs to find the file, they can go on their computers and pull up that case. So as of October 1st of last year, we do not create paper files for our criminal cases. Before that, before I arrived, we had stopped creating paper files for our civil cases. So we have a digital environment now for civil and criminal, and we're being more efficient, more environmentally friendly as well. But we got big things coming up over this year. One of the things I've realized that we really need to respond to is fraud. There are constant fraud attempts happening on Fairfax County residents. So I've told the team, we're going to really focus on responding to this. People are using the courts to try to make people believe that they're, dealing with court personnel. They get cold called by people claiming to be us, claiming to be the sheriff's office, telling them they've missed court or missed jury and that they have to pay money over the phone or they're going to be arrested. We're going to be participating in a program in April called the Scam Jam, and we're going to have a whole marketing campaign coming out over the next 2 months. And my main thing is going to be just reminding the people in Fairfax, the court never calls you for money. We don't call you ever asking for money. If someone is doing that, it's not us. Hang up the phone, give us a call. Those are scammers. The other big one too is property and deed fraud. You have people that are using the publicly available resources to find Fairfax County properties and then either try to create fraudulent documents and then present them to our office claiming to be you, or you have situations where they're contacting the owners and also trying to defraud them that way. So I believe in my office, since we have recognized this threat, we have a duty to respond. And that's why we're going to be launching a public awareness campaign. And thank you for sharing that, participating in the Scam Jam this year. My staff and I will be there in person. We're going to have a table, and we're also going to be there accompanied with our friends from the FBI. So late last year, we started a partnership with the FBI. We assisted them with on-site training. We gave them free accounts to our court programs. We had found out, you guys, that they were coming in person to do research at our court. I don't need them wasting time driving on I-66 to come to our courthouse when they could be accessing that remotely. So we created that partnership, and we now provide that access to them. And they'll be joining us at the Scam Jam. But yeah, no, we've been busy. I think some of the big things. Sorry, do you need my help? You okay? Okay. Now we have also coming up our back scanning. I know it's not the most exciting issue out there, but we have 100 years of files that, there's my son, Chase, say hi. Hi. But we have over 100 years of files, I think, that are at our offsite records facility. We're taking up way too much of Fairfax County space, holding paper files. So I'll be investing some of our resources in backscanning and digitizing files, minimizing our carbon footprint a little bit, and just being a little bit more efficient, a little bit more smart, a little smarter with that. One of the things I think, I'm glad to see the theme is really revolutionizing access. Everything we do, we try to be intentional about. Are we making this information easier for our residents to access? This is public information. It shouldn't, you shouldn't have to jump through numerous hoops. But it's also about figuring out ways to connect citizens, to connect people, and also recognizing not all of us, English is not our first language. English was not my first language. So I think it's important to have people in these positions that are thinking about those issues constantly, right? I think about my parents and other people in this county when we're creating new programs and developing ideas. So with everything that's been happening, unfortunately coming to us from the other side of the Potomac over the last couple of months, I've had to talk to the team and sit them down and remind them of things like our Fairfax County trust policy, right? That we, I think you all need to know this. We don't collect information regarding whether someone is a documented person or not. That is not something that in this Fairfax Circuit Court, we don't have forms that ask that. But also, it was important for me to remind the staff, if you have someone that is coming up to a counter and they claim to be, some type of official, they don't get to come behind the scenes just because they're wearing, a special uniform. You need to ask for identification. You need to come get one of us supervisors. And I'm going to be asking for a judicial warrant before anyone comes behind our counter. It's plain and simple as that. So I'm very happy that the county reminded all of the agencies of the rules, right? And that we have certain processes that people have to go through before they can access what happens, the non-public information, the non-public areas of our facilities. So that is something that over the last month, I had an opportunity to talk to our staff about and remind them of that, but also like letting them know they have backup, right? That's what I'm there for. And my two chief deputies, so that we can talk to the person and ask for identification and ask for their judicial warrant or court order. But I think it also, sadly, I had to have some tough conversations with others within the courthouse complex over the last couple of weeks to verify and make sure that our cases and our court proceedings aren't going to be interrupted by people, that people aren't going to come into our courthouse and take someone in the middle of a case. Unfortunately, I've seen the news that other parts of the country that has happened. I can tell you that's not happening in the Fairfax Circuit Court. There has been enforcement, immigration enforcement, always, yes, outside of the courthouse. That does occur. But in our courtrooms, you don't have ICE agents picking up people in the middle of a case. Okay, that has not happened in our court. And but I asked those questions over the last couple of weeks because if it was going to happen, I wanted to make sure that the public was aware that those things were happening. But no, for right now, there is no enforcement of that occurring inside our courtrooms. But these are tough talks, right? I mean, one of the things too that I had a conversation about, we have a lot of staff. So we have a lot of people who have spouses and family members that are employed by the federal government. So I launched a campaign a couple of weeks ago where I put out that Fairfax County is a place that respects civil servants. And if people find themselves landing on hard times, I hope that they will consider applying for jobs and positions within Fairfax County. My office recently had 3 openings out, and we'll be having more and more openings. And those are always on the Fairfax County job site. But I'm constantly reminding our staff, not just our new American staff, but all staff, that we care for them, they're respected, and none of this gets done without them, right? The satellite service, the free online case program, e-case search, the digitizing of records, our participation in this community outreach. You've seen a theme here with the satellite program and participating in Scam Jam, and we were at Coolmore Day tabling last year. This is intentional that we are out in the community more so people can see our office. Too often I've run into people that were like, we had no idea that this county elects a clerk of court. That was always, when I was knocking doors, I would get that, like, what job are you running for? Like, is that something we elect here? One of the funniest talks I had at a door was like, no offense, but like, is this like legit? What position? And like, it is. It's only on the ballot every 8 years, and it's a really important one. Let me tell you about it. We do a lot of important things, including all of the concealed handgun permits in the county come through my office, and we don't issue one unless it's gotten a clean background check. So a lot of times that was one of the things people actually cared about more than some of the other aspects of my job. But guys, it is good to be with you all. I know that was a lot to take in, but I wanted to make sure we had a year of solid work that we had put in so we could show the results. And that when you think outside the box, and sometimes you do have to do that. It's not always just doing the same old thing and day after day. You have to remember that you're serving the public, and that put yourself in their shoes, right? How much would you like it if you lost half a day traveling from Mount Vernon, coming from, going through our security, not knowing which part of the court to go to, and maybe perhaps English is not your first language, so you're not sure who to ask. And also, my brother would always remind me, Chris, remember that the courthouse can be a very intimidating place for many people. So we're trying to do more about meeting people where they are and bringing those services out to them. And it's exciting work. We have a lot more to do over the next 6.5+ years. But I'm very happy to be with you guys and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Wow, Chris, we couldn't be more proud of you. We really love that you took the time to come and join us. This is very valuable information. More people should be able to have access to their own paperwork and files, and you are really going to the right track. And I want to take the first question as a chair because I just want to know, what was your first challenge when you walk into the office? Because even though you worked there for many, many years, you knew what you were fighting for, but that's different than being elected and walking to the office. So tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest challenges, and it was a bit intimidating for me, was 170 new people who I didn't know. And, Maritza, I had a meeting on the first morning of my first day, and I brought everyone in for the meeting. And I didn't even realize till later that some of them were worried they were going to be fired. And I would just like, that didn't dawn on me. I brought coffee and donuts and breakfast. And I just said, I gave them a short speech. And I said, I hope to be with you guys a lot earlier. I had hoped to be with you guys somewhat in December and get to meet you prior. But I told them I was actually working at my old job at the Arlington Circuit Court until last Friday. And I didn't get to taking down my kids' artwork until 4:30 p.m. last Friday. And they were like, I'm like, and the reason I did that was because we were going to be short-staffed at the courthouse. And I knew at the end of the year, people still needed to come in and get their divorce orders and be able to come in and apply for marriage licenses. And I wasn't going to let my team be understaffed. And so I'm like, so that's why I didn't get to you guys earlier, but that was my team then, and you're my team now. And I've heard you guys are the best. and we are going to do great work together. And I said to them, I know we have all the 800 plus duties that Virginia law says we have to do. I think we can do all of those, and then also help out our neighbors who have had a harder time accessing this place historically, right? So a long way of saying, all these new people, all these new faces, not just within my office, 170 people, but in the sheriff's office, the judges. Remember, it's not just the circuit court in that building, it's the juvenile domestic relations court, the general district court, the circuit court, and all of those courts have tons of judges, tons of personnel, and then all the people within Fairfax County government, Fairfax City government. So it was like information overload. So yeah, that's why if some of you guys saw me in those first couple of months, I looked like a deer in headlights, I think.
Well, we have Bob. Thank you so much, Chris. We have Bob that he wants to talk to you. Bob?
Hey, Chris.
Uh,
I can't say enough about how proud we voted for this guy. Yes. It's just wonderful, and to hear all this stuff, which is frankly well beyond where my mind was in terms of the things that you had in mind to do. So just, this is great. Keep up the good work. The question I have, being of that age where people want to sell me insurance, neck braces, knee braces, additions to my home, I am really concerned about the security and the property records, the deeds. And it's been very difficult for me to get my head around what a fraudster can do. What I'm thinking is that while you're looking at what they can do, are the people being proactive and developing something that I can do to set up an additional security gate that they won't necessarily know about, but that I can put in place so that, when they come there, they don't have the answer to my security questions or whatever. But I'm just wondering, I'd love to be able to go in there and put up another fence.
Bob, thank you for reminding me of that, because that was something I forgot to mention. There is a way, in some ways, there's ways to lock your credit, right? There are some similar ways to do it with your own real property, with your homes. And that is something I think we are going to be doing more awareness of and do a campaign around that. But to that, and we are also, my office is working with the Department of Tax Administration, DTA, to develop a program, a property alert notification system. So there are some private vendors out there that will sell you something similar where you'll be alerted if there's any kind of action or any movement on your property. That's fine, but I actually think you should be getting that already for free on your taxpayer bucks. So we're developing that with DTA. If you're a homeowner here, you have access to a program called My Fairfax, where you can see your property, your tax information. You will then now have, hopefully this year, if not early next year, have an opt-in service that you can opt into where you would get property alerts. And so that's something we're creating right now to address this, because it scares me. I mean, I think that someone's real property, their homes, their land, are usually their biggest asset. And the people out there, the bad actors.
It's not our biggest, it is our only.
Our only.
I mean, that's it. Cars and house, that's it. And it's really scary. And if there is a lock that I could use right now, that would be great. But if that's part of the planning, as soon as that's out, just let us know, because locking my credit is I've done that on a couple of occasions because of skims. But it's cumbersome because there's a lot of things that I do as just a matter of life that, you couldn't do that because you had a lock on it. I went down to, where was it? Lynchburg, to buy a car. and they wanted to be able to get into the stuff, and I had forgotten to remove a lock on one of the credit bureaus. So it was like, oh my.
Yeah, I've got it too. And I had a similar situation where someone couldn't run a credit report because I had it locked, right? And but there is a way on real property. So I can talk to you offline, but I want you all to know it is a major priority for my administration to respond to fraud. To the point that in my most recent communication to the county about our upcoming initiatives, creating the property alert system was number one, right? Because we actually get a lot of residents that contact us at the court telling us they've, seen an infomercial, or they've been contacted by someone that said, believe it or not, we saw your property listed. And then they found out someone was trying to list their plot of land down in Lorton or somewhere. So our staff, the land records team, is excellent, but guys, they're catching things right now because closings are not high, right? If closings were to start picking up, I mean, the staff won't be able to spend as much time as they currently do looking for the red flags that alert them, hey, this might be a fraudulent attempt, right? But we're on it.
Good. Thank you very much, Chris. Hey, thanks for being you.
Thank you for being you and for your friendship and all the buttons, the best looking buttons.
Gladys, I know that you have a question for Chris,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
I'm
I
going to
have a
finish
quick one.
introducing
Yeah.
Alex. Yeah.
I'm just so impressed with, of course, with what you're doing, Chris. It's just fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It brings to mind, if you could, I don't mean right now, but there are some positions like yours that are so fundamental to our rights, to our fundamental rights. And I just learned a whole bunch today. I did not know any of this. I met you at the fundraiser before, but that's when I started getting an inkling of this stuff. And I've been at the national level, but I haven't been at the local level, and the local level is where it's at right now. It is so, I just wondered if at some point, I don't know how, but if we could engage a conversation because of your brain, and I know where I can see it. Anyway, if you could advise whomever about those really fundamental positions within the county, the state, etc., that as a party we might be wanting to focus on, because we gotta pick and choose, right? And so there are some positions that we need to focus on, and yours is one. Of course, thankfully you're there. So I just, you know more than I. So any education you can send our way, oh my gosh. And I don't mean me, I mean to the powers that be, the people who are more involved. And so I just really would really appreciate knowing and having people being alerted to those very important positions that have such high impact positions like yours.
Gladys, thank you. That's such an important point, especially about these constitutional offices, right?
Yes.
I don't think they get as much attention, but they're so important, and it's a big job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you nailed it. I think, I was smiling listening to you, because it's about people's due process rights, right? The right to life, liberty, and property. If you want to boil it down to, that's what I do on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
Their right to the trial by jury. So, I mean, in terms of messaging, it's such an impact, right? But it's little known about this office that's actually been around forever. I mean, it dates back to colonial times in the 1600s in Williamsburg, but it is such I think, a critical position. But I was saying to someone in the office today, there's another elected, and depending on the locality, there's other constitutional offices like the Commissioner of Revenue and other different positions that people don't run for, because they don't know anything about. So let me work on that, because I think there's something there. We need to do more in terms of awareness, to be telling people, did you know that there's an election coming up for the, for the Commissioner of Revenue in City of Fairfax? Or like, and no one that I know of has shown any interest in running for that. So
Yeah.
we can do more about these to raise awareness about these.
Thank you. Thank
You
you.
bet. Good point.
Thank you.
Yes, Bob?
One thing I might say on that same topic is, when you say, did you know there's an election coming up for? Right now, there are a lot of us who are our nervous systems are so dead from that beginning phrase, that beginning phrase actually can be a turnoff. If we start the conversation with, do you know that we have a commissioner of the revenue or whatever? And this is what they do. And you hit a couple dot points that are going to hit home with most everybody. And then you say, and oh, by the way, there's an election coming up real soon. You give them that little bit of an education, and it's just a dot point. But it starts out not with, you got to support, you got to do this, you got to do that. I'm numb from all the people that I want to support, and with our modest income, we can only support so many of those things. But when I get the information, I can get fired up, and I can say, yes, I can find $5 for that person. So just a thought.
No, good point. I think with the yearly elections, in some years more than one election per year, there's a lot of fatigue out there and worn out people. So 100% got you on, can turn them off by the whole, did you know there's an election? But the Commissioner of Revenue is just a great example. Arlington County elects a Commissioner of Revenue. Fairfax County does not, but the City of Fairfax does. So I can work on angling the communication better.
And even though we can use the bulletin with the Latino Caucus to start putting out the questions, to start, bringing the attention to the people, so we can start something. And Alex, please introduce yourself so we know that, people know that you're here.
Hey, you mean me? I'm Alex Rodriguez. I live in Herndon, Virginia. I've been in political life since the 60s, active in Massachusetts for 30 years, and now active in Virginia for 30 years. I've run for Congress in Boston, Massachusetts, and learned to lose. And I've run for Democratic Party office and other offices 29 times in my life. I've lost 6. I've won 23. That's how you commit yourself. I've known Chris Falcone since he was a young man, came on the scene and wanted to make change. And what we all did was point our finger and say, that's the direction. And he went in that direction. And now he's got a voice larger than most of us. And what I think everyone has to understand is that we all have a voice. It depends on how we want to use it. We all have energy. Depends on how we want to use it. We all want to make the world the way we perceive it should be made. That's what Donald Trump's doing. You get the stick, you get control, you make the world the way you want to do it. You might not get one chance, but if you do, you have to move in that direction. People will oppose you. People will not go along with you. You learn to win some, you learn to lose some. You have to move forward. Our democracy is very strong. Our country is very strong. It's being tested to its limits right now. And what we have to do is make sure that we're the loyal opposition. we have to oppose those things that we don't agree with. Unidos, which used to be La Raza, just had its annual convention this weekend. We were there, my wife and I. Janet Morgia, Chris, you know who she is, was speaking. And she reflected what many speakers are saying today, that you have to stay in la brecha. You have to stay in the fight. You have to be there. You're going to lose. Get used to losing, but get used to winning. We've won more than we've lost over the last 40 years. I go back, and most of you, well, you all look younger than me. So, but I go back to marching with Martin Luther King. You know, I have my name engraved on the Boston Common under the Embrace statue for the work I did in Boston. Big deal. You know, you don't know history's being made when you're making it. You just go out there and you commit yourself. And I did that, and I've seen Chris do it, and I'm sure each and every one of you have done it in your own little ways. Talking to your neighbors, expressing a difference, saying, wait a minute, I don't agree with that. And put online the possibility that that neighbor will not speak to you again. But don't back off on the fact that, you know, the color yellow is the color yellow. You know, you can't turn around and say it's not. You know, the Constitution is the Constitution. And birthright citizenship is birthright citizenship. It's written right there. Oh, but what about these people that come over and have a baby, and they came over just to have a baby? That's called birthright citizenship. What about the Irish folk who came over and had babies and never, you know, never applied for citizenship? The country is full of those. And their children became citizens, and their children became citizens. You know, what about the haters in our society? Hillary Clinton said, what? She said, half of Donald Trump's supporters were deplorable. Was she right or was she wrong? That would be 38 million Americans. I think there are 38 million Americans.
I think she underestimated.
Yeah, well, you might have thought that, but the reality is that we live among these people. I play golf. The season will start on March 22nd. And I play golf with 3 Republicans. And I've been playing golf with them for 12 years. You've learned how to do interaction. You learn how to talk. You have to know your issues. You have to not just pick up a bit of the news. You have to know. There's a difference between some of you here. You're all on the Fairfax County Democratic Committee, right? But there's a couple of us that are the Democrats. And you heard people say the Democrats lost. And probably you said that. You're a Democrat, but you're not the Democrat. You have to become the Democrats. You have to, you know, how many of you ever read the state, you know, platform and understand what you signed into? Very few people have ever done that. You read the platform. This is what we believe in. This is what we're going to fight in. Because if you try to do, this is what I believe in, and this is what I am going to fight for, you're going to lose. You know, you need a gang, and we're a gang. That's what we are. I was raised in a gang culture in Brooklyn, New York. I understand the strength of a gang. You need people to help you out. And Maritza, I really commend you for pulling this along. I know how lonely it is when you take your responsibility. You know, people just don't join up as they should. If everybody on this screen right now brought 6 people to the next meeting, think about it. Okay, do the math. That would be 30 people. And if those 30 people brought 6 more people along, do the math. Okay, and that would give us a gang that would have strength and meaning if we found the platform that we could agree on. Right now, it's an easy platform. We want to be against the president of the United States because we think he's really weird. He's doing crazy stuff. Well, in fact, he's not. He's doing with when you get the stick allows you to do. Now, the constitutional crisis might come, but it'll only come when he defies the Supreme Court. I've lived in Boston when the Boston School Committee defied the courts. And there is a solution to that. The courts appointed a citizen committee to take over the schools and said the school committee's not doing their job. That's it. The courts have tremendous power. I don't want to keep going, but don't lose faith. Don't sit at home and be angry. Wake up in the morning and find just one thing you can do that day. And Chris has been doing that ever since I've known him. And thank you, Chris.
Well,
Alex, I've been doing it thanks to you, and mentorship is what I'm hearing right now, right? Meeting my friend Alex in 2013 when I got politically involved and left my law firm after Sandy Hook and was searching for answers on how I could do something to stop the disease of mass shootings in this country. And I went to go work for Terry McAuliffe and Ralph Northam and helped get them all elected. But I met Alex and found out about his life. And I think that's why it's so important to be finding mentors, finding people in this space so that we can continue, as he said, to grow these networks, right? I had a young person approach me today about what can I do right now? What can I do to get more politically involved? I recommended find the young Dems. I think they're having some of these conversations, that things she was asking me that I think you're searching for some of those answers. They're talking about those things. Get involved behind someone you believe in. I said, I like Abigail Spamberger. Get to know what she's running on. So I thank you very much, Alex, for being a mentor during a time when I needed to hear, what else I could maybe do. At that time, I did not, in my wildest dreams, think about running for office, but I did, I think you plant the seed and who knows what it can germinate into.
Let me just give one example. I have a granddaughter who became voting age this year. She's at VCU in Richmond. She started organizing her friends in Herndon, Virginia, making sure that they registered to vote. She went to VCU and she went with a lot of Herndon kids and she checked them out and she said, so now you're going to vote? And they said, no, I never registered. She said, I spent all that time giving you the material. She took them in Richmond and made sure they registered to vote. Lo and behold, we had a councilwoman here in Herndon, the only woman on the council, South Asian woman. She lost her election on election night by 18 votes. My granddaughter had come up the weekend of the election and got all her local girls and friends to register to vote same day. The next day, after we all were feeling bad that our councilwoman had lost the race, it turned out that she won by 48 votes. My granddaughter accounted for 28 of those votes. Okay? That's what makes a difference. Silly little things like that. Not big speeches, not, the Washington Post wrote, and I'm against what Trump's doing, and I think the social system should go this. No, just knocking on doors. Chris got elected. How, Chris? You knocked on doors. He knocked on doors.
Alex, we're gonna reserve some time for the happy hour because usually we finish at 8. But thank you for your intro. I'm just gonna make sure that we mention Mark Kennedy. He's joining us tonight. Mark, are you there?
Mark, you're muted.
Okay. Well, I'm going to run to the agenda so we can move on, and then we can adjourn and have a open mic so whoever needs to leave doesn't feel like I'm taking their time. So about old business, I just want to mention that our social media is growing and is getting different platforms, and we need you to not only follow, but we need you to help us move with this social media. We want to thank Martha Calderon and Leonel Rojas for their hard work to create the Caucus webpage and getting us into social media. We are now on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and even Blue Sky. We always need people to help with content. So if you're one of the many that want to join us and help us succeed in this, I'll really appreciate it. Martha and Carlo and Leonel, they're traveling right now, and they're gonna take a month off from the Latino Caucus while they visit Ecuador. So we're hoping, and we know that they're having a good time. For the new business, any new business that we should consider if you are here before? That I'm just gonna skip it if I'm not interrupted, and I'm gonna go directly to the announcements. The Mount Vernon District Annual Mardi Gras is this Saturday, March 1st, and there's always a great opportunity to meet the candidates. So if you're planning about going, that will be their chance to go one-on-one with the candidates and see how they're planning about changing Virginia for the best. And Congressman Connolly, he's
Is it me or I just can't hear you, Maritza?
Mark. Thank you, Mark. I've been going through the agenda in mute microphone. Thank you, Mark. Okay, so I talk about all businesses. I just mentioned about that we are having different social media platforms that you can follow us and you can be part of it, helping us grow. And in the announcements, we're gonna have the participation with the Mount Vernon District Annual Mardi Gras this Saturday, March 1st. And there's always a great chance to meet the candidates there. Congressman Connolly is gonna have his 31st annual St. Patrick's Day Fete on March 16, and Fairfax Democrats annual Pick Up Your Pony Straw Poll on March 23rd and the Mustang Sallies. And the Blue Fairfax dinner is gonna be on May 18, where we always contribute to the Latina Cantina basket for the silent auction that is becoming very popular, and everybody is welcome to help create the basket or donate items. I'm adjourning this meeting so we don't take anybody's time, but please go get some refreshments, join us for the happy hour, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for joining us. Now,
Maritza, I just
Hi,
wanted to say I heard you earlier. I'm on my phone and I couldn't figure out how to get this thing to work, but I finally got it working.
No, but when you told me I was already, I noticed that I was muted.
No, earlier when you were trying to talk to me. I want to hold everyone up, but thank you.
Well, introduce yourself, Mark, so people can know you, because people need to know who
I
you
think
are.
I know most people here, Chris and Alex and Gladys, I think, and Karina. I think I know who Karina is. But hey, everybody, I'm Mark Kennedy. It's good to meet you.